Okay, honorable judges, dear students, good morning. Welcome to my class, and it's so cold outside. Well, it's my great pleasure to give you this special lesson. And today we are going to talk about some important techniques of English to Chinese translation. Well, first question, speaking of translation, what is the role of translation, or what is the function of it? It's an open question, okay? There's no key. It's an open question. You can give me a word or a sentence or a short expression. What is the role of translation?
Maybe it's the bridge between English and Chinese.
Wow, bingo, the first one gave me the right answer. Well, I have read a very interesting metaphor. It describes the translation is like a bridge across different cultures and languages. Then, if translation is a bridge, we are the translators, right? Then we are the builders of it. To build this mighty bridge is not an easy task. It requires a good knowledge of our mother tongue and a good knowledge of a foreign language or even foreign languages. Do you agree with me? And we need some tools, useful tools. Or let me put it into this way. We need some techniques. Okay, so today we are going to practice a very interesting sample essay because, as you can see from the screen, the title, Why We Enjoy Mishaps. It's an oxymoron, right? Enjoy is a happy word, while mishap is not a happy at all. So, what's your understanding of mishap?
Disaster.
Okay, disaster. Anything else? Disaster, natural disaster. Anything else?
Bad luck.
Bad luck. Good. Well, there are some synonyms for this word, such as bad luck. Or take myself, for example. I always draw number 1 in the contests. So that's kind of mishap to me, right? It's a bit stressed out. And I give a translation to this title. 小获怡情. Do you like this? Do you like this? Well, all right, we cannot make any comments before we finish the reading of the whole passage, right? But I welcome all of your suggestions to improve this one. Whenever you finish the reading after the class, okay? Now, let's start the business. First of all, still the objectives and the teaching procedures. It mainly talks about the basic standard of translation. And I'm going to introduce some techniques to translate the complex sentence for this essay. Well, to translate essay is not an easy job, but we can always find an easy start. Do you agree with me? So the procedure, we are going to have a sight interpretation at the beginning of the lesson. And then we are going to analyze 2 versions. And I will introduce 2 standards for you to evaluate them. And the third part is techniques and advice. We need to learn, we need to use some tools to improve our translation skill, right? And the last part is a conclusion or the review of key points and assignment. Am I clear? Since we have just the 20 minutes, so this will be a miniature of the complete lesson. Now, let's start from the first part, sight interpretation. You know what does it mean, right? 知道什么意思？释义. It means we do the reading and interpretation at the same time. Okay? So, first one. Do it together, okay? 这是 you can use your microphone on your desk. Be free. 这是一件奇怪的事 right? 10个人里面有9个会变得更开心当他们面临一些小小的不幸时 Okay, is this a normal expression in Chinese? Is it normal? Not at all. Why? What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it?
Because the order of Chinese and English are different. It's different.
Yes, we have different sentence structure, right? Okay, let's see another version. 说来也费解得很，十有八九的人在遇到小小的灾祸时会感到更快活。Besides the wording problem, the second one is much better, right? What makes the second one much better than the first one? I think the biggest difference between these two versions is the position of adverbial, right? The position of adverbial, right? So why we have this kind of big difference? Because in the first version, our brain cannot process the complete structure of the sentence. We cannot predict what's going on next, right? When I was an interpreter before I became the instructor in university, I was so afraid of doing the simultaneous interpretation because, well, I cannot predict what's going on and I cannot control what the speaker going to say, right? And that is how our brain works in such short time. However, for the written translation, especially when we have sufficient time, we need to use some techniques to strengthen some weak links in this process. And we cannot just say the second one is better because I have a good feeling of it, right? Right? So we have some standards. And as for beginners, these two standards are very practical for you. We have to follow something, right? We need some standards to evaluate our work. And it's like a beacon in the foggy sea, and it will guide your sailing, okay? So, as beginners, to achieve faithfulness, we have to try hard to cover the information of the original text and to follow the original style. And to achieve coherence, we have to respect the way of the expression of the target language. Am I clear? Okay, now let's see how it works. For these two short sentences, the one is in English version and the other is in Chinese with the same meaning, but what's the difference? How about you?
The structure of the sentence is different.
Structure, still the structure. Or can you go specifically?
For example, in the Chinese version, 半夜里, 它是 in the middle of the sentence. However, in the English version, in the mid of night is at the end of the sentence.
Wow. Thank you. Good job. Still, the position of adverbial has been changed in Chinese, right? The different thinking patterns will be reflected in our language. There's no doubt, right, about this. Then that is why, well, to achieve the faithfulness, we have covered all the information. And then to achieve coherence, we have to change the place or the positions of some fragments, right? So that is why we say the second version is much better, right? Okay, so good job by now. I think you can do some harder work now. I have picked paragraph 1 from this sample essay. And I found a very interesting place. I believe you will feel the same way after you finish the next task. The first task is please count how many sentences are there in this paragraph. How many? Come on, come on, come on. Time is limited. Come on. Good. 4. So now, this time, please count how many clauses are there in this paragraph. Clauses. Oh, you have the materials, right? Good. How many? Well, let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, we have 4 sentences with 8 different clauses. That is why the key point where we are going to focus on, where is my pen? Okay, it's going to focus on what? What? The complex sentence. Do you remember I wrote this on the board is to, well, always attract your attention to remember what we are going to do in this class, okay? We cannot ignore this feature. So, and we are going to learn some techniques to process the complex sentence. Normally, we have 4 steps. The first one, the basic pattern, you have to find out the stem. And the second, we are going to deal with some subordinations. And the third is the meaning of the words and grammatical relations. And the last but not the least, rearrangement and revision. We don't have much time. I don't have dictionary, right? So I will give you the meaning of the words, and we will skip step 3, okay? Now, we have 3 clauses in this sentence. Just okay. The first is in which, the other is, well, so that, and the last is after. The first is attributive clause. Well, the other 2 are adverbial clauses with different functions, right? And now it's time for us to find out the stem or the trunk line. Can you give me the trunk line or the stem?
A train became stuck in a snowdrift.
Are you sure there is in a snowdrift? Well, the trunk line is a train became stuck. Well, suppose this long sentence is a tree, is a giant tree. Then this is the trunk of this tree. But just with this trunk, it's not like a tree at all. We need to go get those leaves and branches back. That is a complete tree, right? So there are some parallel subordinations for this sentence. And even a subordination has its own subordination. So that's a tree, a flourishing tree in summer. That is the complete sentence. Now it's time for us to move this tree into China because our people would like to see the same beautiful tree. That is the time for us to do the translation, right? But remember, our Chinese people would like to see the same beautiful tree, okay? So which means our translation should respect the way of expression of Chinese, right? Now, as you can see, the stem is the train, become stuck, like a tree in winter. Not beautiful at all. And then we make it beautiful, right? So we have a complete sentence. And, well, I will give you the meaning of the 6 subordinated parts, well, or the components of this complex sentence. It's your turn to put them into the right place. I will give you 10 seconds, okay? Anyone? Okay, thank you. It's up to you.
35年前，在我第一次去美国的旅途里，我坐的一辆火车被困在了雪堆里，以至于直到所有车上的食物都被吃完之后，很多个小时，我们才到纽约。我们也没有到纽约，最后到了。Sorry.
So we actually, well, finished the traveling to New York, right? I think she did a good job. Anyone else would like to try? How about you?
35年前，在我第一次乘火车去美国的旅途中，我们火车被困在了雪堆里，导致我们很多个小时之后，车上所有的食物都吃完之后，我们才到纽约。
We can sense some tiny differences between the 2 versions, right? So it's time for us to emphasize some important places, and we have to give notice, special notice. The first one, well, we'll start with the clauses, okay? Subordination, deal with the subordination. Well, we'll start with the easiest one, in which the restrictive, attributive clause. So in Chinese, we usually put the attributes before the antecedent, right? Like 漂亮的树, 火红的太阳, 寒冷的冬天. right? But in English, the position is very flexible, right? And when the attribute is long, we usually put it behind the antecedent. So for this one, give me your translation.
我乘坐的一辆火车。
我乘坐的火车。But this is the solution for the short and simple attributive clause if it's like this. We have other solutions. And this will be the major part of our next lesson, okay? Let's move on to the adverbial clauses. So that. What's the function of so that in this sentence?
To tell us the result.
Good. It's a adverbial clause of results, right? So in Chinese expressions, we usually put the reason at the beginning, and then we express the result. So should we change the position of the contents after so that? Should we?
Yes.
So your version?
我乘坐的那辆火车由于困在了雪堆里，所以我们最后并没有抵达纽约。
Sorry, I just skipped the until. It's actually, you still put this adverbial clause at the end of the sentence, right? We didn't change its place. So it's very flexible. Sometimes it's required, but sometimes it's optional. And for the last one, the adverbial clause for time, right? So how about this one? Because I found the difference between these two versions is in this place, is for this one.
I think it can be changed. So after all the food on the train had been eaten up, we did not arrive in New York until a great many hours.
So the translation would be 随后车上的食物告罄，在火车最后驶抵纽约之前，中间不知熬多少个小时。So I just bring it forward, right? So these are the three important clauses in this complicated sentence. Now it's time for us to see the complete version of the translation. As you can see, I give different colors to the components of the original text. And these colors has all been changed, right? In the Chinese version, which means because we have different thinking patterns, and that will be reflected by our language. So when we do the translation, to achieve the faithfulness and the coherence at the same time, some changes are unavoidable. Right? Sometimes we have to jump out of the original structure, get the meaning out, and express it in our own way. Right? So that is the major point of my lesson today. And it's time for us to review the key points. We have learned some techniques about translation of the complex sentence. And it's mainly about 3 steps. The first is rearrangement, and then adjustment. Then we have to polish it. Why we have to polish it? Because it's an essay. It's a literary work, right? We can't reach a higher level until we can take care of the literariness. 文学性. Okay? Well, that's my hope for you. Okay? Now it's time for assignment. Please finish the translation of the paragraph 2, because next time we're going to talk about some techniques to translate multiple kinds of attributive clauses. And if you can finish the homework before the next lesson, that will make our lesson more effective. Okay, am I clear? So, thanks for coming, and I wish you mishap free. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Thank you very much for your demonstration. I will ask you 2 questions. I'll start with a simpler one. You start by translating the title of the essay.
Right.
You put it into 小或怡情. And we can see, if you look at the original title, is Why We Enjoy Mishaps, right? It's more like a question here.
Right.
And you translate into 小祸怡情. It's all fine. I just want to know, how would you explain this to the students?
Well, first of all, I still think we should follow the habits, writing habits of Chinese. I don't think we usually use the question as the title, and I use a parody here, like 小赌怡情, or 小祸怡情. So I think, they will call their the similar memory of this word, and I think title first of all should attract people's attention, and second it should emphasize the main idea of the whole story. So that is why I use this 4-character structure as the title.
Okay, thank you very much. And the other question is more related to your teaching. I can see that you've put in lots of work into this preparation.
Right.
So how would you best describe your methodology, your teaching methodology?
Well, it's more like a task-based teaching methodology. I give tasks to students to stimulate them, and I encourage them to think by themselves and give some outside stimulation to them. So it's a kind of combination of the outside and inside. But the specific methodology for the teaching is task-based. And I was inspired by the constructionism. I think it's too big, but...
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.